Well, thank you, everyone. I am Phil Goss, president of the United States Association of Reptile Keepers, better known as USARK. And yes, there is actually a group for just about everything, even reptiles. So my talk today, most hate them, we love and fight for them. If you were here last year, why did it have to be snakes for Indiana Jones fans? And since you're back, obviously, why did it have to be snakes again? So before I begin, I'm usually introduced as the reptile person in the room because I know a thing or two about reptiles. But I'm a dog guy. I worked at a mom and pop pet shop through college, and obviously if you're an animal person, you're a dog person too, so certainly more than just reptiles, sometimes dogs and snakes. And I'm a cat person, so this was a cat at the pet shop I worked at in college, used to ride around in the hood on a hoodie all day. Cute little Siamese, and I like big cats too. And again, I just like all animals, so if there's an animal out there, I've probably taken a picture of it. And USARK, so we are a 501c6 national advocacy, focused primarily on protecting people's freedoms to keep reptiles and amphibians as pets. Collectively, those are known as herps. And we always highlight responsible because just like whether you're in the dog world or the horse world or whatever you're in, unfortunately you have the bad actors. We're not out protecting those people, we're protecting the people doing it right. And since I'm a reptile nerd, we'll see if I get this, but Animalia cordata vertebrata reptilia squamata pythonidae python malorus biwatatus is the long way of saying Burmese python. So reptile people, fish people, we operate in Latin names. So yeah, it may as well be Latin because it is Latin. If you didn't know it, there's domesticated dog and cat down there at the bottom, the Latin taxonomic names. And if you ever want to upset a reptile person, talk about breeds of reptiles. So in the dog world, you have breeds. You have Corgi, Bulldog, whatever you have, Chinese Crested, Xolo eats Queensly. I'm pretty good with dogs too. But never talk about breeds of reptiles because we don't have breeds, we have species. And now to show you about some of the critters that we work with. Egyptian tortoise, pancake tortoise, they're actually flat like that because they live between rocks in their native range. Diamondback terrapin is a U.S. native species. Helmeted turtle, electric blue day gecko. So these are the natural colors on most of these. I'll get into some what we call color morphs a little bit later. Crested gecko is a very popular pet gecko. Giant gecko, the largest gecko species in the world. A gargoyle gecko, he's actually jumping. Leopard gecko, another really common pet species. This is a hatchling leopard gecko, a little gecko I produced. Chinese crocodile lizard. So these are all green iguanas. These are all the same species, only 4 different flavors. Panther chameleon. Those also, so chameleons, as a lot of you probably know, they can change their colors. It's mainly because of their mood, not to reflect or camouflage with their background.
So what color do you want them to be?
That depends on the species, and usually with chameleons, you want their colors to be vibrant or just bright. So whatever color they are, so if it's blue, you want bright blue. If they're always kind of drab looking, that means something's probably wrong. So he or she doesn't feel well. Maybe your heat or humidity aren't correct, so you always want nice vibrant colors. Just the tail, just really cool characteristic of a panther chameleon. A different chameleon, Jackson's chameleon. Another one, something I produced, a blue-tongued skink. Obviously you can see why they have that name. So this, I don't know if you can see, I don't have a pointer, but there's a set of nostrils buried in that sand. There's an eyeball, and when he's out of the sand, this is what he looks like. So you can see how this might inspire some horror movies or things like that. So that's just a defense mechanism. They can make those flaps come out from the side of their head. This is a toad-headed agama. And now I'm going to show you something really cool. Just one cool thing that reptiles do. So this is that guy on top of the sand. And you saw the first 2 pictures. He just vibrates. If you get a different video of it from above, they just vibrate really quickly and they got feathered toes. We'll do it one more time because it's short. So again, this is that toad-headed agama on top of the sand. And then if he gets startled or if he gets too hot, he just shimmies and shakes his way right down in the sand like that. And all he'll leave exposed is sometimes just the nostrils. Getting a little bit bigger, rhino iguana. This is the longest lizard in the world. So not as long as crocodilians, but the longest lizard that's not a crocodile monitor. Close up, his name's Max. There's a crocodile, so that's the looking down the barrel of a gharial. Oh, sorry. Just to make sure everybody's paying attention, we'll slip a fennec fox in there. And now on to some of the slimy critters. A lot of people call frogs and salamanders, amphibians, slimy. Red-eyed tree frog, just a really cryptic looking Vietnamese mossy frog. You can imagine in the wild that would be very hard to see. A dart frog, so a lot of people call these poison dart frogs. In captivity, they lose their toxicity. So in the wild, it's because of the certain types of bugs that they eat. In the wild, since we're feeding them domesticated insects, they actually lose that toxicity and they're not poisonous in captivity. Fire salamander, a newt, crested newt, mud salamander. And no, I'm not going to show you slimy stuff all day long. So we'll slip a panda in there. So we talked about big lizards and little lizards and salamanders and frogs. What did we forget? But you're an animal lover, you love these too. So yeah, we'll sneak it in with some people in the picture as well. So we got a little girl holding a ball python, another little girl holding an albino boa constrictor. And are there any cute snakes? I'll try my best. We'll see if I can win some people over. So this is a pair of twins. These are hognose snakes, albino hognose snakes, and they permanently have that little smile on their face. And with reptiles, depending on the species, some come out of eggs and some are actually live bearing. So ball pythons lay eggs, but boa constrictors actually give live birth. So they have litters. Whereas if it's laying eggs, they have clutches. So again, another hognose. You can see they just have that permanent smile. So typically, when you're shooting for cute with a snake, you go to hognose snake. A little baby leucistic hognose snake, someone's holding it in his hand. And hognose, you see a lot of cartoons about hognose. Hognose are known for playing dead. If you have them in your native range in the US, they're a snake, you walk up on them and startle them, they'll flip over and actually play dead. And they do this, so this is a cartoon. You know, normally he's flat, then if he gets upset, he gets flatter. If he gets really upset, he puts his head flat, kind of look like a cobra. And that is a real thing. They don't just do it in the cartoons. So that is his flattened out head. So that's the cute hognose snake with a flattened head. So they do actually flapjack like that. And since I know we have a lot of dog people in the room, that we have a dog-faced water snake. For the cat people, we got a cat-eyed snake. And corn snakes, another really popular pet. And as we heard from a previous speaker about cats, snake people know a lot about genetics too. You may be aware of Mendel's law and Punnett squares. And depending on what you're breeding, sometimes you have animals that are triple heterozygous for a trait, and we have to know all the math to do all that stuff to know what you're going to get if you breed that triple head animal to another triple head animal. And you saw this corn snake, which is what most people are familiar with, but corn snakes come in all these colors and more. So that's all the same species. Again, they're not breeds. Each one of those is not a different breed. It's all corn snakes, all the same species. Ball pythons are another one that come in a whole lot of colors. In the reptile world, we call them morphs. And the one in the top right for the dachshund people in the room, that's a piebald. So we do have some names that are similar. So you have what we call the normal coloration, and then the blotch is white, just like you have in piebald dog breeds. And horses too, I believe, but I'm not quite as good with horses. This is really cool. So this is a baby green tree python. And with every shed, they go through a color change, and as an adult, they actually turn green. So the exact same snake may be bright yellow or bright red as a baby, and then they'll turn green as adults. And now I'm going to lose some people, but we'll show you some venomous snakes anyway. But if you're into dragons, you might like these. So we have hairy bush vipers, and they naturally just come in various colors. So this is U.S. native red diamond rattlesnake. Again, even if you don't like them, and I understand a lot of people, especially with the venomous snakes, but a lot of people still find them intriguing when you get a nice shot like that where it's not looking at you like it wants to bite you. This guy's got little horns on his head, a desert horned viper. So they're kind of like that lizard I showed you. They'll actually bury themselves in the sand. And this is really cool. So again, another really cryptically patterned snake. And the tail is different colored because they do what's called caudal luring. So if they're trying to catch prey, they'll wag that tail back and forth so it looks like a bug. And then when the prey comes to eat the bug, the snake will eat the prey. So that's why the tail is that, so that's normal. That's not like it lost its tail and it grew back. That's just normal coloration so they can do that caudal luring. And one I know a lot of people may not like, but cottonmouths and water moccasins. And even if you see one of these in the wild, the last thing that snake wants to do is bite you. It absolutely does not want to bite you unless you step on it or harass it, or people who usually get bitten by snakes are young drunk men, because that's a real statistic. I'm not just making that up, but They've had too many beers and they want to show off, so they go and pick up the cottonmouth or the rattlesnake or whatever it is, and that's when they get bit. But again, it takes a lot of resources for a snake to make that venom, and that venom is intended to kill prey and eat prey and help it digest the prey. That's a last resort when it actually bites you. So they're not going to chase you. And anyone who ever told you that a cottonmouth chased them, they are 100% full of you-know-what. That snake did not chase them. Cottonmouths do not do that. Occasionally you may get a snake that comes at you, it's really racers and whip snakes and faster moving species of snakes. It's because they think the easiest way to get away from you is in the direction that you happen to be standing. It's not because they're actually chasing you. And then we have poor Nerodia. So Nerodia are a non-venomous species of water snake, but because people see them in the water, they automatically identify them as water moccasins. And I've gotten into so many arguments with people who just do not want to listen, and they'll just argue with me, who they shouldn't be arguing with about this, that they saw cottonmouths. They'll show me a picture of it. I'm like, no, it's a non-venomous water snake. But you can see, and they do the same thing the hognose did. They'll flatten out their head to make it look a little bit bigger. But these are all four of these pictures are non-venomous water snakes. But since they look like cottonmouths, they flatten their head for a defense technique. And because they live by the water, people just think they're cottonmouths and they kill them. And even, I mean, look at this last guy. He's cute. He's a cute little dude just hanging out in the water. Now, unfortunately, with Nerodia, opposite of the cottonmouth will only strike as a last resort. These buggers are mean. So if you come across a snake and it's actually trying to bite you and it's by the water, it's probably non-venomous because he doesn't know about venom and all that stuff. But these guys, if you hold them, you're going to get bit 20, 30, 40 times because he wants you to let go. But again, it's non-venomous and nothing's going to happen. All right, so that was a bunch of pretty pictures. So why herps? So again, reptiles and amphibians collectively are known as herps. But why do we keep them? Well, obviously it's because frogs are man's best friend. I don't know what's wrong with the frogs I have in my pond, but I can just go up and like pet these wild frogs. And anyway, so that's me petting one of my frogs. But of course, I'm kidding. We all know who's man's best friend is, and it's dogs. But back to why herps. So allergies is a big thing. A lot of kids these days have allergies to especially cat dander or dog dander, or the reaction when cats clean themselves. And what's more hypoallergenic than a pet snake or lizard or whatever it is? And again, a reminder, reptiles are species and not breeds. You don't want to pick a fight with a reptile person, but there's over 3,000 species of reptiles and amphibians in trade. So there's all kinds of colors, all kinds of sizes, something that's going to meet your lifestyle. So we've got Chihuahua-sized reptiles, and we've got Great Dane-sized reptiles, and all kinds. We've got ones that are laid back like French bulldogs and one that are active like Belgian shepherds. So just depending on what you want, we've got a species, not a breed, that will fit your household. You see a lot of urbanization. Fewer people have yards. They live in smaller quarters, so reptiles are usually a good fit, especially if you live in a high-rise apartment. You don't have to go all the way to the bottom to walk your pet gecko. Hectic lives. So I keep snakes because, well, one of the reasons, at the end of next week, I will have been in a hotel 150 nights this year. So if I had a dog, it wouldn't be fair to him. So think about this when you're out walking your dog. It could be someone like me who lives in a hotel almost half the year, and they just want to pet your dog because they love dogs. So I'm that annoying person who says, can I pet your dog? But I do always ask first. I don't just walk up and grab his jowls and shake him. But people have hectic lives. Oh, sorry, back to my snakes. So as adults, I actually keep boa constrictors. I feed them once every 2 to 3 weeks, which means they're only going to the bathroom once every 2 to 3 weeks. So they're not high maintenance like some other more traditional pets. No leashes. Well, sometimes no leashes. This was a guy in England, I believe. This story popped up. So he's out walking his black-throated monitor. This is not something we really recommend. Lizards are not quite as unuser-friendly as snakes, but you know, this guy's out taking his lizard for a walk, but at least he has it on a leash. And he's a silly Brit, so what are you going to do? And then who keeps reptiles? So this is probably what a lot of you in the room think we look like. Unfortunately, there is some of that, but generally, and I say generally, you know, we're normal, whatever normal is. I actually don't like referring to myself as normal, but I don't look like these yahoos. They're TikTok. There's some famous TikTok rapper guys. I don't know. the island bros or something like that. So these are actually real people, for better or for worse. Sorry, I'm being mean. So are they common pets? So about 6% of U.S. households have pet reptiles and amphibians. So you're thinking 20 million Americans. So there are a lot. If you think about it, I'm sure you know someone who's got a turtle or a frog or a gecko or something at home. So they are fairly common, and that tends to go up every year. And we have driving forces that you don't see in some other animal interest or sectors of the pet industry. We have reptile shows, which you're familiar with dog shows where you go and you show off your dogs. Reptile show is totally different. So reptile shows are big conventions where people actually breed these animals under human care and then they're selling their offspring. So that's what you have at a reptile show. And some of these shows are getting over 15,000 attendees in a weekend. And there's several. There's probably at least 15 or 20 reptile shows annually that are getting that kind of attendance. And there's a whole lot of smaller ones. And this is just one shot of the Reptile Super Show in Pomona several years ago. It's actually way bigger now. So this show is in a building that's 4 acres under roof, and it's filled with critters and critters for sale. Social media, especially with COVID, a lot more people are watching YouTube. We get snake discovery is one of the most well-known in the reptile world. Emily and Ed, they have, you probably can't see that, and my line got off a little bit, but 3.2 million followers on YouTube. And she just talks about snakes. She gets on there and look, she doesn't look like those guys I showed you earlier. Perfectly normal looking person talking about snakes.
He's a little questionable.
Well, that's a musician. That's not Ed. I forget what that's just one of their clips. I forget what music video that is. But yeah, we can't, yeah, he's some crazy musician. And we have a good relationship with them. We actually have scavenger hunts at some of those big reptile shows where kids can win a pin if they go to a certain amount of booths and get a Snake Discovery USARK lapel pin. And can you have a human-animal bond with reptiles? Of course you can. And again, they're not dogs. I'm not trying to sell you on these animals. I'm just telling you about us and the crazy people who keep reptiles. But some people do have that kind of relationship with them. So just a few pictures. This is a picture, family game night, and the bearded dragon is just hanging out on her shoulder. Another bearded dragon. Obviously really common. This was actually a story. This was a child with autism, but his pet fat-tailed gecko calms him down and brings him to a new place. Some carpet pythons hanging out with some crazy Australians in the living room. And obviously a lot of people, some studies show over 60% of people say they're either afraid of or hate snakes. But these animals do have roles in the ecosystem, just like all animals. And we talk about these animals and educate about them so people aren't out killing them. And this is a study that was done. There's actually been multiple studies now, but this showed that almost a third of the people in a college class raised their hand when they asked if they intentionally swerved to run over turtles or if they'd been in a car that done so. And I know there's someone in the room who saw 2 people intentionally swerve to run over turtles just in the last month or so. And we can't imagine that, but unless, if someone had ever met a pet turtle or had been introduced to these animals, they're not going to swerve in their car to intentionally hit these animals. So the same with snakes. So the student who did this actually put rubber turtles and snakes on the road and then counted how many people intentionally swerved to run over these animals. But again, we're out there trying to educate and tell people you don't have to kill that snake, you don't have to run over that turtle, and we are conservation leaders. So a little bit more about USARK, just some of our logos, various species common in the pet trade there. Obviously we'd like to see them higher, but our social media numbers on Facebook, which is the longest running, we've got 127,000 followers. Our YouTube, we need to get going again. And what put us on the map, we actually had a federal lawsuit against United States Fish and Wildlife Service, and since they had to stick their nose in it, Humane Society United States and Center for Biological Diversity got involved, and our little organization, bringing in $300,000 a year, took down all 3 of them. And that's just a quote from the appellate court. That was actually in the final brief that said we agree with ARK, so pretty cool to see. And we see all types of legislation. We see species bans, which are similar to pit bull bans or BSL, BDL, whatever you want to call it. You see it for bull type breeds, Dobermans, all that kind of stuff. And one of the things I really hate to see is bans on constrictor snakes. because you hear the word constrictor snake, you're thinking this 30-foot long snake, which snakes don't even get 30 feet long. But again, Hollywood's part of that and the sensationalized media. But this is a constrictor snake, and this is as big as this species gets. It's a species of sand boa. So this is a boa, a big scary boa that can literally, that's someone's hand, and that's as big as that animal gets. This is another constrictor snake. This is an anthill python. So this is a big scary python, but that is an adult. That's as big as that animal gets. So constrictor snakes, just like dog breeds, they come in all different sizes, even in the python world. So you have little tiny pythons like this, and you have pythons that can get about 20 feet long, depending on the species. And exotic animal bans, dangerous wild animal bans. When I started doing this about 2013, that's what we saw a lot of, were what we call DWA bills. So they were dangerous wild animal bans. So they lumped all reptiles in with lions, tigers, bears, that kind of thing. Pet limits we see a lot of, where you can only have, I know dog people know that, and cat people, you can only have 2 or 3 dogs or cats per household. You see the same with reptiles now. Traveling animal acts, things that would actually make it illegal for a person to take a tortoise or a leopard gecko into a classroom or a public library to give a talk. Retail pet sales bans now. I think we have at least 3 cities in the US that when they ban the sale of dogs and cats in pet stores, they ban the sale of reptiles too. So that's a new trend. Collective punishment we see a lot of. So just like you may have someone who's an irresponsible breeder, you know, that labels everybody as a bad breeder. The same with the reptile world. You see the crazy guy who wants to hold his rattlesnake without any special tools, and that's how we all get pictured, as people running around with rattlesnakes just waving them around, and we don't do that. So alerts, we put out a lot of alerts. That's just our alert graphic, city, state, and federal level. So if you follow us on social media or get our newsletters, you'll see these graphics. This is a postcard we did a couple years ago during the Federal Competes Act. I think we distributed about 80,000 of these. Of course, I don't know how many got sent in, but we put a whole lot of these out, and then we made it real easy to fill it out and get it to your legislators. Had directions on our website on how to find them, and these were on little postcards as well, handed out at reptile shows and pet shops. Just some more of our graphics. And does this sound familiar? So again, substandard dog breeders are what the public hears about, and we get the same thing in our world. We're all substandard breeders. Nobody's doing it right. And some of the work we've done in 2024, so when I say engaged on 20 plus issues, so that's a lot of work involved. That's submitting comments, that's usually testifying at a hearing. That could be months of work. So it's more than just how many bills we monitor or look at. That's a lot of engagement on those. We have a federal lawsuit currently working on matters like the Endangered Species Act, which I'll touch on. Amendment work on local laws. Right now we're working on a light bulb ban. So the federal government Department of Energy passed a ban on certain light bulbs that you use in your household, so you can't get incandescent type bulbs anymore. They're making people switch over to LED type bulbs. When they did that, they didn't acknowledge that reptiles have specialty light bulbs that we need to be higher wattage than LEDs. So they banned those. So now we're running into actual animal cruelty and animal welfare problems because the government has banned those types of bulbs for reptiles. So we're trying to get an exemption for animal care bulbs. Endangered Species Act amendments, which I don't have time to get into it, but Endangered Species Act is a good thing, but there are parts of it that need to be modernized, is what we have with this. So I showed you this guy earlier. He's the Egyptian tortoise. It's a non-native U.S. species, but now it's on our Endangered Species Act. It was just listed a couple years ago. So if you bred these, which this is a tortoise, you may have had to keep it 15 or 20 years before you could breed it. These aren't money makers by any means, but if you were breeding and selling these, now you can't sell them across state lines.
It makes it illegal to sell them across state lines. And while it's not enforced very often, it's actually illegal to own any ESA-listed species in about half of the U.S. states because those state governments don't really understand what ESA means. So there's a lot of unintended consequences when we see this stuff happen. This one, Diamondback terrapin, is widely popular in the U.S. It is a U.S. native species, but it breeds easily. It's obviously a really pretty turtle. And now it's been petitioned to be listed under the Endangered Species Act, and the same thing kind of happened. We may have half the states may have illegal pets that they don't know about because their state has a law on any ESA species, and then you can't sell them across state lines. More federal issues, so just proposed a couple months ago under the Animal Welfare Act for the USDA to start regulating fish, cephalopods, and reptiles and amphibians. So this is, it always says it's not going to pass this session. This session's almost over. Local issues, West Mifflin, Pennsylvania. This was a pretty bad one. It did change along the way. It got amended, but originally it was a ban on reptiles, amphibians, fishing, and more, and an all-out ban. It had a limit of 1 bird per household, so you couldn't own 2 pet birds. Again, the dog and cat pet limit. And I'm going to say we stopped it, but we always meet other groups. It means NAI, it means PAN, there's other troops involved, but obviously I don't know if you're talking about USARK, but I was there at the hearing. It was one of those hearings. It's unfortunate to see, but you smile when you see it. I saw a gentleman almost get arrested because he was that upset about this, and he got up and kind of started yelling some not pretty words at the board for even talking about this. A police officer came up. I kind of walked up and backed the gentleman away, and again, you like to see that kind of passion, but obviously you don't want to see anybody get arrested. What there were, this was a town of, I mean, it's a small town. I want to say less than 20,000 people, and there were about 600 or 700 people who showed up at this here. I mean, it was pretty crazy. Colorado pet tax. So this is one credit to the OPA, Organization of Professional Apiculturists, Bird Keepers. They actually found this and sent it USARK, but this was a crazy pet tax between $8.50 and $25 per pet, and it applied to all animals. So this even applied to invertebrates like corals in a fish tank. It applied to fish. So if you had 100 fish in a pond or an aquarium, you could possibly have to pay $2,500 a year for this pet tax. I like this quote. So obviously not the spill sponsor, but again, other groups were involved, but we posted our alert on Friday. The sponsor pulled it on Monday, and another legislator said this: I am glad this legislation was proposed because I never knew so many of my constituents care about legislation. So the Colorado legislature just got hammered with emails and phone calls all weekend through Monday morning, and the sponsor pulled the bill on Monday afternoon. More Colorado. I just had a hearing. When was it? Tuesday we had a hearing. So PACFUF and the Department of Ag in Colorado, they regulate reptiles and amphibians now. PETA's involved, and that's ongoing. This was a serious one. Arizona had a warrantless seizure bill. So literally someone could have called and said that you were beating your dog. So you got in a fight with your neighbor. Your neighbor could call and say, I saw this person beating their dog. Without a warrant, they could come seize your animal and cite you for that. And that's right there. So this is a quote from the bill. The formal rules of evidence do not apply and reliable hearsay is admissible. So again, my hearsay. So this was a warrantless seizure bill. So imagine whatever type of animal you keep and your neighbor gets mad and calls on you and all your animals get confiscated. The way that was stopped. There is a really good coalition in Arizona of animal interest businesses. I know Petland just joined. So they're doing really good work. Obviously we worked with them on that issue. This is just a quote I like: can never fight with someone if I seen by the barrels. Meaning, and I see this so much. I see people on social media just arguing with animal rights people. Just don't do it. I mean, if they're animal rights people, you're not going to change their mind. You may as well be arguing about politics. It's just, it's wasted time. And there's, I don't know who actually get that quote. But basically what it means is pick your battles. So again, don't be online arguing with the animal rights zealots. And just pick your battles. And we really got to use our energy properly, because animal rights is a $2 billion industry, and it is an industry. They're making more money off animals than anybody in this room ever thought about making off animals. But they outfund us 2,000 to 1. But again, we have to pick our battles. It'll be some more about what we do. This is just something else I just kind of like. So this is on the HSUS Wikipedia page, along with the Center for Consumer Freedom and some other groups like Humane Watch. But we're listed as one of the critics for HSUS, USARK. So if you scroll down to HSUS Wikipedia page, and I didn't do this, I have no idea who did it, but USARK is listed as a critic. And when I talk about picking your battles, I mean, sometimes we had a newsletter that said HSUS is asking people to lie to the U.S. government. That was the subject line. I mean, we just called them out because what they were saying was just nonsense. So this was a quote from a newsletter. I'm not sure who wrote that newsletter. He may be on stage right now. But anyway, HSUS President Wayne Pacelli is even asking HSUS followers to join in and lie to the U.S. government. I mean, sometimes you just get to a boiling point and you throw it out there. Problems we face, you name it, we have them all. Public opinion, reptiles are gross, kill them all. Every snake is poisonous, which they're venomous is the correct term, but poisonous.
They're manhunting pythons. They have stingers in their tails. They hunt you. They chase you. They eat you. I mean, you hear all this stuff. It's all shenanigans. Frogs and toads give you warts. Touching lizards and turtles will give you salmonella. If you lick them, it's possible. If you're cleaning their tank in your kitchen sink, maybe, but you're not going to get it just by touching them. Obviously, animal rights activists hate us. Misinformation is huge. Unwarranted bad press, media sensationalism. And especially in the last 10 years, 15, we see a lot of manipulated science because it's easy grant money. You can talk about invasive Burmese pythons and write something up and then you get tens of thousands of dollars in grant money. But I mean, it's just getting silly with this bad science. So science is, equal to journalism anymore. So this year, a Tufts University study said that by 2025, the entire lower 48 will have a climate conducive to Burmese pythons being invasive. So we're talking about the pythons that are now stuck in the southern 4 counties of southern Florida. Tufts University is claiming in just 25 years that Maine and Montana will have a climate that could support Burmese pythons. First of all, if our climate warms that much in 25 years, the last thing we're worrying about is Burmese pythons. And none of us are even going to be here. But how can you write science this bad? So this is a map from this study. It literally shows the entire lower 48, the contiguous U.S., as being suitable for Burmese pythons. It's absolutely maddening. It's not real. It's not science. It's bogus science.
Where was it published?
This is Tufts, so it's right there, Tufts University. Yeah, well, it's the contiguous, so it's not the continental. Contiguous, but that's not happening until 2075, I don't think. I don't know if you see where I'm going with this. I kind of highlighted BS, but it's bogus science. I mean, but this is a university study, and they're putting out this BS, bogus science. And major media sharing it. The first time I saw it, I think it was CBS who was sharing this and claiming this was going to happen. But again, if I'm not you may not know. You may see this. You see CBS talking about it. You think, oh my, I live in northern Montana. I'm going to have Burmese pythons in my yard next year, which, by the way, the pet trade did not put those there. I don't have time to get into that. But it's not our fault. We didn't do it. And my apologies to the ethical and honest scientists and journalists. I know there's some out there, and since I know one in the room, even attorneys, there are some good attorneys out there. I'm almost done here. All right, what can we do? Another quote you see a lot in the lobbying world: the world is run by those who show up. So you have to show up, and showing up doesn't mean necessarily going to a hearing, but I guarantee it, because some of this stuff we can track through our alerts, but I see Reptile people wasting their time arguing online or complaining or bitching and moaning online, and they're not taking a minute to do what we ask them to do, to send an email or make a phone call. And that's part of showing up too, because a lot of times, I'm going to see it here I go there this week. I'm back in 2 weeks in Louisiana. But a lot of times, all the lawmakers see, in this case commissioners, a board of commissioners, they see how many people supported a bill and how many people opposed it. So if people don't bother to take a minute, we literally have alerts that you can do in a minute. You put in your name and your city and state, and it sends off an email. But if people don't bother to take a minute to do that, our numbers are way lower, so the commissioners think, oh, everybody's in favor of this and nobody really cares. So that's part of showing up too. It's just whoever puts out the alert, whether it's Pet Advocacy or NAIA or USARK, whoever puts it out, just do it, because that does matter. And also, if they get a lot of those emails, then they'll talk to myself or Patty or Bob or whoever it is. They'll talk to us when we go in to talk to them. That's what I call our foot in the door, is all the emails and phone calls. And again, if animal rights groups are the only group that show up, it's a done deal. So we have to show up. And before we go, just a quick reminder on why we do this. Some kids happy with their snakes. So the future, that's a tegu lizard she's holding over her shoulder. And of course, I'm not going to leave out the dog, but a little dude holding a little grass snake at a reptile show. And this little kid, how cute can you get, holding a sand boa? But again, we got to keep doing this so the future can appreciate these animals and we can keep doing what we do. And any questions about any of that? Yes?
I have one question. Regarding overpopulation, like in the Everglades, where and I don't know if this is true, but you see it a lot.
If you read it, it's not true, but go ahead.
It's not on the internet, so it's got to be true. But the population portion of the constrictor pythons in the Everglades, basically wiping out the total, all, raccoons, deer, everything. Is that true? Or is it, what is the situation?
So Burmese pythons shouldn't be there. We don't want them there. They shouldn't be there. They're not native. They are eating things, but any way the media tells you the stories from the media, they're sensationalized. So first of all, an adult Burmese python is only going to eat once or twice a year. It's nothing. I've seen studies. So if you look at a feral cat, sorry cat people, but if you look at the people who aren't doing it right and they're feral cats out there, a small feral cat, a 6 to 8 pound feral cat, is going to kill 30 to 40 times more animals than a 15-foot long snake is, because of the metabolism snakes have. So if it eats a large meal, it may not eat for 6 or 7 or possibly a year, 6 or 7 months, up to a year. And unlike cats, snakes only kill if they're going to eat something. So they're not killing something because they're bored. They're not knocking baby birds out of nests or whatever they're doing. And there aren't nearly as many as they claim. There are too many. Obviously, there shouldn't be any there, but it's nothing like the media reports it. And as far as all these mammals not being there, something you never hear about from the media is the mercury levels and everything in Florida from Big Sugar. So the people making money get all this stuff covered up. You don't hear that those animals are dying because they're eating crayfish and fish that have mercury toxicity, and that's killing the raccoons and stuff. And the last time, there's a road we drive through the Everglades at night looking for, we call it road cruising, actually looking for animals. I saw 2 raccoons. So I don't know what, and that's just me randomly driving down a road and I see 2 raccoons. This is in the middle of the Everglades. So again, some of those studies, again, they skew it. The reporting may be bad. They can manipulate the science, but it's bad. Yes, they shouldn't be there. They're a problem, but it's nothing like the media or anything you've read makes it out to be. And there's also been no attacks on any member of the public. So if you go down there, these snakes aren't going to come find you. Yes?
I'd like to refer back to your note about the animal care law. Sorry, I'm a dog person, I'm a cat person, a donkey person, my husband has chickens. And so you said the LEDs were the ones that came on. Are you arguing that just a regular old heat lamp is the issue that they're having a problem with?
So in the reptile world, there's a spectrum of light called UVA. So it's a spectrum of light that we can't see, but it's really important for reptile physiology because reptile eyes see light and spectrums of light that we don't see. So in these UVA bulbs, they usually put out heat too, so that's a higher wattage bulb, and the Department of Energy banned all these. So it may be a 60-watt light bulb, but it's not the same as the light bulb used for general use. I mean, these bulbs on the reptile side of things cost between $6 each to $51 each, depending on the type of bulb it is. And it's not like a $1 LED bulb that you would buy. But it's the LED bulbs that we're using for general use aren't putting out that UVA or UVB that reptiles need.
The average person's going to walk in Lowe's, Home Depot, or whatever. You have a specific source that you have to go for that specific animal care bulb.
Yes, so they're not sold at hardware stores because companies like Zoomed, Exoterra, these are reptile manufacturers, and the bulbs have reptiles all over. I mean, the packaging has reptiles all over them. And again, they're 6 to 30 times more depending on the bulb than a general use bulb is going to be. So people aren't going to go spend $6 or $7 on a bulb when they can get it for $1 if they're using it for general use. So this is a total specialty bulb, and that all the Department of Energy looked at was how many lumens per watt are coming out of the bulb. That's all they looked at. They didn't look at what the bulb was used for. They didn't look at the packaging on the bulb. That's all they looked at, and they banned these bulbs simply because they don't put out enough lumens per watt. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Yep.
Very
Yep.
I'm in the lighting business.
Yep.
Is this similar to grow bulbs, like what you see a lot of marijuana growers?
Actually, one of the reptile bulb manufacturers got contacted by a marijuana grow facility and said, "We use your bulbs. What are we going to do?" So it was more than just the reptile world using these. So yeah, again, it's spectrums of light that we don't use for general use bulbs in our houses or businesses. These are specialty bulbs, and now we don't have access to them.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yep.
And I'm in the business.
Yep. And I'm sure there's other, I don't grow marijuana myself, so I don't know about what kind of light they need. I'm sure there's alternatives maybe for the growers, but we don't have them for reptiles. And I think
There are LEDs
Yep. Thank you, everybody.